Back with another video, and this video is going to be about a few variations of a false 9. So I'm going to write that in the top for everyone, and we're going to just go over the key concepts about a false 9 and what are the most important aspects, just so everyone gets a good comprehensive understanding of how to use a false 9, when it's important, and really shed some light onto this widely used term and concept. And so let's get right into it. So normally the most common false 9 we see, so if we see our shape here, just going to highlight the shape real quick of 4-3-3 with fullbacks in the inner part of the outside corridor. So here we see our back 4 with slightly narrow fullbacks, our midfield 3, occupation in both half spaces, and now our front 3 with wide wingers at the moment. So now from here we can look at how a false 9 can change the structure and how maybe some of the interactions can change. So right now the back 4 we can say is effectively pinned by our center striker occupying both center backs and the wingers occupying both fullbacks. So now when the false 9 drops in, usually there'll be some movement from our attacking midfielders to try and increase the space between lines for the false 9 to drop into, and usually it's not just vertically, but it can be, and for the diagram we'll just say that it is. And so now from here we can keep our wingers wide, but typically that's not the case. So now what will happen is, since there's no threat in behind, immediate threat in behind, one center back can jump, and this is when a higher attacking midfielder can become more useful, because then they can have access into this space in behind. But with a center back jumping without a threat in behind, defense can be relatively comfortable, and vertical compactness in dangerous areas can actually increase. But this is also, it can also lead to some offensive advantages, and that is just a staggered back line is easier to break, and now it's easier to manipulate. Like we said, deep lying runs can be more useful. But now we'll look at the more mainstream use of the false 9, and that's to create numerical superiority in the midfield, whereas before we were creating more dynamic advantages in behind and exploiting space and exploiting the space left by defenders when they jump. So now we have our false 9 drops into a deeper role, and now what will often happen is our wingers will come forward and become narrow, and they'll usually play somewhere between the fullbacks and the center backs. And when this happens, our fullbacks will get wider and provide the width. So now we'll have our fullbacks creating width, trying to stretch the opponent horizontally, and now our wingers will be narrow as two forwards, stretching them vertically and pinning the whole back 4. So now one winger can effectively pin 2 defensive players, and that's the picture. And so then now we can focus on concepts to exploit the 4-man midfield against the 3-man defensive midfield shape. So the key parts here is the 2 wingers coming narrow, and it almost looks like a 4-4-2 diamond. And we do see an overload in the half spaces, so it's not uncommon either for the wide attacking midfielders to actually play in the outer half of the external corridors. And a lot of these vertical corridors can be split in half as an inner and outer half, which I can also make a video on that, just explaining that and why I like to do it. So now these players may actually play wider they may not, but a wider, it forces the defensive midfield shape to cover more ground and just increases the passing distance between players. But when they are narrow, it can shorten the passing distance and allow the ball to move faster to the free man. So from here, now we can look at another variation, because this variation, it is good because from the central pivot you have two diagonal passing options and a vertical passing option. So it is very progressive, and finding the free man can work in certain situations, but it can also be hard, as we see the shape from the midfield, as when the 6 gets the ball, right away the 9 is blocked by the cover shadow just naturally, so it might be a little bit easy to defend. So let's look at another variation of a false 9, and this we're actually going to look at a 3-5-2 situation. So now with a back 3, you see the wide center backs fanning outwards, and we have 2 holding midfielders, and now 2 forwards. I'm actually going to make the 10 the forward, 3, 5, 2. So from here, I'm just looking at making sure the numbers of the players make sense in terms of what we're doing. So 3, 5, 2. Now we're going to introduce a little asymmetry. So now our back 3, I'll highlight them here. We have a back 3, and our wing backs are now creating our width. And wing backs are a little bit higher than fullbacks, and now we can point out the asymmetry in our midfield shape. And now we have our 2 forwards. So depending on how they start, maybe they occupy 1 center back each to try and create or neutralize the one-man advantage many teams like to have in their defensive shape. And now it puts stress on the fullbacks to, if they go out wide into the wide positions against the wingbacks, or if they stay connected to their back 4. So either way, there's space to be there to be exploited. But now, as we see the asymmetry in our midfield shape, now the biggest thing, so now we have passing lanes from 3 central corridors into our midfield, so into our double pivot shape, and they are all diagonal passing options. So I'm just highlighting them here in yellow. So we've created many diagonal passing options into our pivots, and now our forward movement, instead of dropping into the central corridor, which is often blocked just because the vertical aspect of it often just naturally blocked by cover shadows, can be very hard to find, and playing into this area with players' field of view, it requires a lot of technical ability and awareness. So now the false 9 will actually drop deeper, and maybe our other 9 will rotate in to pin our central defenders. So now both center backs are pinned. We have our wing back wide, and now this puts some stress on the fullbacks to create decisions on who they will press. So now we have our false 9, who I'm just highlighting here. I'll switch the players out so he's actually the 9. So now we have our new attacking midfielder, or our false 9, and so now our wing backs put the wide fullbacks into a situation where they have to make a decision. So we still have the numerical superiority of our 4-man midfield, but now there are more advance in the half spaces, and we have more diagonal passing options into the first from the first line of build up into our second line, and now we have more occupation in the half space in wider areas. So these were just 2 variations I wanted to show you, and how we can create 2v1s out wide potentially. And there's some more aspects to this that we can go into, but for today I think that's good. We can also get into more variations later on, but just wanted to introduce the concept and how pinning works and the false 9. So thanks everybody for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. I'll see you for the next one.